When JuJu Watkins announced her commitment to USC in 2022, the #1 women's basketball prospect in the nation declared, "There's no place like home." The statement was and is an embodiment of what means the most to JuJu, something that head coach Lindsay Gottlieb instantly picked up on the recruiting trail.
I mean, that was the #1 thing right away. I think everyone, when you do any research on her at all and you start asking people, the two words you hear all the time were family and community. So I knew both were really important.
Like the USC women's basketball legends that came before her, JuJu's roots are found in Los Angeles. More specifically, Watts.
I was just grateful for what I have. I've always been grateful, and it's really taught me to value community and never forget where you come from. And I think that's a big part of my story and why I played so hard.
JuJu's love for her community seems to be a trait that is just part of being a Watkins. In fact, it defines the Watkins family legacy, one that began generations before the basketball star. It started with her great-grandfather, Ted, who moved to Watts at the age of 13 after escaping a lynch mob in his birthplace of Mississippi. Ted quickly became known for his charismatic leadership, which flourished at his job at the Ford Motor Company and as an active member of the United Auto Workers Union. Just months before the Watts Rebellion of 1965, Ted founded the Watts Labor Community Action Committee, also known as the WLCAC. As its president, Ted created a mission to rebuild and strengthen his community, a movement created by and for the residents of Watts. He voiced his vision with the trademark phrase, "Don't move, improve."
My father felt like he was planting flowers, and that, just because Beverly Hills has outdoor art and sculptures and fountains and so on, didn't mean that Watts couldn't have it.
Watts lacked basic necessities like reliable transit and affordable housing. Ted quickly learned how to harness support from local and federal politicians and leverage government grants to improve the community. He brought tangible change to the city by forming the Watts Credit Union and helping to build a local hospital. The WLCAC sought out to support the most vulnerable by creating programs for senior citizens and students on summer break.
He was very, very simple in the way that he saw solutions. Long before there was a certain brand, my father has said, if something needs to be done, don't wait for someone else to do it, just do it.
Ted's ingenuity fueled his solutions. Nothing showcased this ability more than when he set out to solve Watts' housing crisis. When LAX Airport expanded its geographical footprint in Los Angeles, Ted found a way to capitalize on the homes that were under eminent domain.
We were able to convince the city and the airport authority that the greatest thing that they could do was to give us those houses so that we could recycle them.
For just $1 apiece, Ted and the WLCAC purchased 1- and 2-story homes from the city. The only catch, however, was that they somehow had to transport those homes to Watts. And yet that challenge didn't deter their mission. Instead, they hired locals from Watts to help move and install each home. Ted's impact in his community ultimately spanned decades and touched thousands of lives. His efforts have solidified him as one of Watts' most esteemed community figures. Almost 60 years after its founding, the WLCAC still operates on South Central Avenue in Watts, just a block away from the Ted Watkins Memorial Park. One of Ted's sons, Tim, now runs the organization and carries on his legacy.
He worked and he built WLCAC. I've taken his formula and I'm on my way to tripling our housing portfolio, the number of people that work here, the annual budget, all of those things. We've tried to make it a place where kids can be safe because we've got 7 acres enclosed. So on any given day, we have hundreds of kids here.
For many years, Tim's granddaughter JuJu was one of those hundreds of kids.
It's been a thing ever since I was super little. I can't exactly remember what age, but definitely grew up around WLCAC 24/7, and as I became older, started to learn more about the history and all the great things that my great-grandfather and grandfather have done for the community.
When she wasn't helping out her family at the office, JuJu naturally spent her time on the basketball courts found outside the WLCAC buildings. Fueled by her love of the game and competitive spirit, she was not intimidated by her opponents.
You'd have boys scraped arms, tatted up, kids, 10, 12, 13 years old, rough and tumble, back here playing basketball on an outdoor court.
Yeah, it was always real competitive. I think, it was my first taste of like real competitiveness. It was really fun.
She wanted to play. That little girl wore them boys out. They still talk about it. That those boys had a tough time trying to handle her. It makes me a little bit emotional because it's just her spirit. It's so pure. And my father had a pure spirit.
The similarities don't stop there for Ted and JuJu. Though they were never able to meet, Tim sees the same drive and passion in his granddaughter that he saw in his father.
She's in her books or she's at the hoop. She doesn't have a lot of other silliness going on, and it's extraordinary. I've not seen such a person outside of what my experience with my father was.
Well, he's never told me that, so that's great to hear, I guess. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to meet him. I can only know him through like stories and stuff, but I mean, that's great to hear. I never know he thought that, so I guess it just inspires me to work even harder.
JuJu's work ethic and talent ultimately launched her to become the nation's top prospect in women's basketball. When it came time to announce her commitment to a college, JuJu narrowed down her top 3 schools to Stanford, South Carolina, and USC. In a twist of fate, her decision can be summed up by her great-grandpa's motto: don't move, improve.
I mean, literally, she is the women's basketball embodiment of that I don't have to go away to be great. You don't have to move, just improve the place you're at. And I think that's what she's doing every day.
JuJu could have easily picked a school more equipped to be a national championship contender, but instead, she chose to rebuild a program with a storied past.
There's something about her decision that was altruistic, that she actually believed, and now it's coming into fruition. She thought she could help the team.
While JuJu is known for what she can do on the basketball court, she is a Watkins first and foremost.
I have a lot of pride in like my last name and my family's history in LA, and I think that it always like pushes me to think more than just basketball. I feel like my family and my great-grandfather and my grandfather have done so much for the community that inspires me to want to take that step and really use my platform for something bigger than just basketball.